Syracuse, how he started.
Okay,
Because the Italy is, I don't care, Italy.
No, I'll talk about that.
Because that's how he started, right?
Yeah. Well, let me start it then, and then I'll bring it up to the
to
where we moved.
Move.
I'll talk about Lodi Street.
Lodi Street.
Yeah.
See, I don't know anything about Lodi Street.
Okay.
Don't forget, you're a lot older.
All right.
Uncle Peter, you want coffee, water?
Go coffee would be cool,
Coffee?
yeah. But, sup, dude? Hey, oh, hey. What are you laughing about? What are you getting a kick out of? What?
Because it's rolling.
Huh?
Because the camera's on.
The camera's on.
Camera's on.
Now?
Yes.
It's neat. You don't trust her. I don't trust her at all.
Oh my
Well, that's
God.
priceless.
She's a devil.
Mamma mia.
She's doing stuff. What do we do now, Chuck?
Now we clean up the excrement.
What's
You
your,
do that.
what's your nickname for each other? What would you call yourselves if you
No,
had a
this,
talk show?
Nickname.
His name was Pedro, but Pedro.
Well, a long time ago, my buddies used.
Pedro.
That's Nanda. Nanda was
Nanda's
dominant.
dominant.
Pedro.
Pedro.
I'd be playing in the park, softball, baseball, and I'd hear her, Pedro. That means come on to eat.
Yeah, you gotta eat. Yeah.
I was so rude to her. I'd say, come on, what are you talking about? I'm playing. Get out of here.
Aw.
Bad.
Yeah.
Bad.
Well, I'll start it off, and
Yeah.
then but this is my. I believe me, he's one of my favorites of all times.
Thank you.
I can't describe him, but he came along. When he came along, it was you were born in 1936. 35.
I'm old.
Please.
Oh wow. Then you were alive when we were still at Lodi Street.
Well, I might have been there, but I don't
You
remember.
were, but you don't remember
Gotta be a
because
little baby.
we moved in 1937.
Really?
Yeah,
I was 2 years old.
2 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have no recollection of anything to do with Lodi.
Well, let me describe it
Yeah,
a little
sure.
bit. A little bit.
Maybe I'll remember.
I wish I could remember Mom giving birth to me because she was in labor for 3 days.
You were big.
And I got stuck. My
were
head was
stuck.
big, and I got stuck. And they said that when she pushed me out, my head was like a watermelon, and it was
Really?
squeezed.
Well, I heard that you came out singing. You did. I was breech though. I heard that I was backwards.
Yeah, you were back there.
Yeah.
But you see, when Mom was convinced that Mrs. Lobello
Ooh.
is the only
Specialist.
person that could give birth to help with the birthing. And we lived at the time when Mom and Dad got married, 1928. Nonno, now think about this. He gave Mom $14,000 in cash
Ooh, big money.
to build a house. So Dad didn't know too much at that time about Syracuse. So Uncle Tony, who was the oldest of the brothers,
Yeah, right.
he got a hold of Peritor, Joe Peritor, and the three of them and Uncle John and Eugene, they built a house on 1314 Lodi Street with a 4-car garage and a sandbox for me, 12 by 20 feet.
Wow.
And Mom had a beautiful flower garden and everything. It was perfect. We lived on the first floor. Dad was very proud of the fact that he put on 7 coats of California stucco on all of the rooms because he was a plasterer. All right,
Dad.
but he was and I was told even that in the 40s there wasn't one crack on one wall.
Oh, he was good. He was very talented. Yeah.
But anyway, when we lived there, and I had it made because I had my own toy room with my own toys.
He was kept.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen the pictures.
And then,
This boy.
that was 1929 I was born. And Mom, it took she was in labor 3 days and everything, because I was and she had the midwife, Mrs. Lobello,
But she
and
had a degree in spooky.
but
He was tough.
2 doors away was Dr. Dick, who was the best obstetrician in the city.
He was an
I
obstetrician.
remember him.
And so he got so mad that she didn't call him to give.
He was a urologist.
Nice
Yeah,
name.
you know, that he, I had, what's this thing under your tongue? What's this thing under your tongue that holds your tongue when you're born? They got
Oh,
a
yeah,
It's a
you
name.
have to connect
It's a
to-
name.
uvula.
Uvula.
No, that's the thing in the back
That's
of
the
your
back.
mouth.
That's-
No, this is anyway.
This
He
is
got
just
so
a
mad at
memory.
her that he took it out on me. He put his finger in there and he ripped it out. And of course,
Great doc. Great doc.
It didn't
Great.
bother. It bothered Mom, but it bothered me more. But anyway, Dad,
Sounds like it.
he was very nice in those days. He taught me how to sing songs. I don't remember them, and he taught me how to dance. So Sarah, Eugene's daughter,
Sarah Penizotto.
she was in a
Very
higher
smart
grade.
girl,
I
huh?
wasn't going to school yet. Because I could sing and dance, what Dad taught me, all these songs, and I could name all the presidents. I mean, now I can't remember
There was
3 of them.
There was 6 back then.
anyway, she'd take me to her classes, and she'd say, sing a song and dance. And I'm singing and dancing, because Dad taught me all those things.
Yeah, he was good. Yeah.
He was good in those days. He was really perfect. And so they got a big kick out of it. And anyway, life was great. But then came the Depression.
Yeah.
Of course, when the Depression came, my toy room was unheated.
Yup.
All the rooms in the house were unheated except the kitchen. And so everybody was in the kitchen all the time.
And there goes the sandbox.
Yeah. and my first licking, my spanking, was because we were eating split peas and macaroni every night because we were broke. And then we lost the house, and moved into the store, above the store.
Why'd you get your spanking though?
And she had 3 kids by then, huh?
Or why'd you get your spanking?
I got a spanking because I'd been eating split peas and
Just
macaroni
complain.
every night. I said, I can't eat that.
He was
Can't eat
complaining that's
anymore.
not good.
And then
Got it.
it was terrible because at the school their heads were in a cloud. They said, we're going to. Shirley Temple is singing on the good ship.
Yeah,
So one
yeah,
teacher
that's
thought it would be nice to have all the kids bring a lollipop to school,
Ooh,
right?
trouble.
Okay, so Mom.
You had to go through none on
Now,
that.
this is a true story. Mom borrowed a lollipop, but it wasn't a lollipop. It was a candy bar with a stick in it. and she says you cannot eat that candy bar because I borrowed it.
Just to show it.
Yeah, because we sing that.
Sing a song.
But when we did that at Franklin School, then on the way home everybody was eating their lollipops. And so I said, well, I'll take a little bite out of it. Nobody will notice. And so I got my first
Trouble.
spanking.
Did you only take a bite?
Who spanked you? Mom, Dad? No,
I think they
no,
took.
none of
I
it.
think it was Mom.
Mom. Oh, must have hurt. Her.
No, I was more ashamed.
I know.
Embarrassed.
But did you only take a bite or did you eat the whole thing?
No, I just took the
Little
bite,
Oh.
and she
Hey,
opened. She
he was
said
true to
you
his
took a
word.
bite
He
out of
doesn't
it. It's going to cost me. They had nothing. Imagine they had $14,000 in cash, and then they wound up with nothing, zero. And so they lost the house, and guess who took it over? Paid the back taxes now. Uncle Tony.
Ooh.
And he was living upstairs, rent free.
Was he an electrician then?
Yeah.
Back then?
Yeah.
How long was he an electrician when he
He was an electrician.
during Lodi Street
When
era?
I was born, he was in business. He and Amato, the Amato boy, the oldest boy. I don't know
Is
if you
that the
remember
grocery
him.
store Amato or
The Amato, the grocery store.
yeah?
Anyway, the oldest son, I think it was Joe.
Yeah.
He had. He and Uncle Tony opened up an electrical shop. They
I
sold
remember
electrical
that.
things
Yeah.
right next to Gell's.
Yeah, they had the van, the little van with a thing on the side.
Yeah, and they were in business, but Uncle Tony took over the house, and we moved into the store,
Poverty.
and the store then, the bathroom was unheated. You had to go, like almost
Horrible.
outside, like where the porch. You know where it was? You know when your dad built that room where you slept,
On the back, over
and
the
there was like a
garage.
closet, next
Over
to
the
it.
garage?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, well, right next to it was a little room, like a closet.
Yeah, oh, I know, that was, yeah,
That was the bathroom.
really,
Yeah.
small?
Yeah,
My God, it was like 3 by 3. I think.
yeah.
That's where I hid my patches, the army patches.
Oh, yeah,
I had a collection,
Yeah.
somebody took them.
Well, hey,
You know what I mean?
somebody
That's-
took my field glasses.
Yeah.
Somebody
Well,
took.
I know what I did to you, but, you know,
Oh, geez.
that's later.
Well, we'll talk about that. But anyway, you came along, you were baby at Lodi Street, which is, thank God you didn't have to miss moving, you know, because it was beautiful place.
Yeah.
And,
I've seen the building. I've been by there. I
Yeah.
never went in though.
It's nice.
You know, I never.
but
Yes.
anyway, we moved to the store, which we had the kerosene heater with the, you know,
Yeah.
where they tipped the thing upside down.
Well, the interesting thing to me has always been that Nono was an amazing guy. I mean, you realize he didn't even speak English when he came here. He worked on a railroad.
He never spoke English.
He worked on the railroad.
He worked on the railroad.
Or
He was very, he worked day and night.
yeah.
And Nonna.
How did he build himself
Nonna,
up into
you
this?
remember, Nonna never stopped working until she
Oh,
had a
Nonna
stroke.
was.
Yeah. But he was the same
I always
thing.
said, Mother Teresa, if she ever met Nonna, she would bow. That was okay. You win.
You know,
What she would say. She's cool.
no, you're right. But you know,
Well, no,
Nonna,
How
I
did he
tell
build
you,
up this
yeah,
dynasty?
well, let me tell
virtually?
you, he built it up, and he contracted sugar diabetes early because they didn't know anything.
Yeah, I know.
The Dr. Aquilino would come
Oh, he was
and he'd put
magician.
on a magic show.
Magic, yeah.
He would put some
His voice.
stuff into the urine and heat it up, and it would turn red, and everybody would go, ooh.
Chemistry.
Yeah, but how did he build up the money that he got?
That's what I said, the business.
well,
how
okay.
how did he become
They
successful?
came, well, when they first came, he came to Italy first, to America first, and he worked on, like Pete says, he worked on the railroad. Then he sent for Nonna. When Nonna came with Uncle Tony was a little boy, and Uncle John was a baby, and they wouldn't let him on the ship because he had infected eyes.
Conjunctivitis, yeah.
Anyway, they left him with a Kumari in Sicily, and they raised him, and they kept him for 14 years before he came to America. But Nonnu, he was such a hard worker, they moved into the Junto's house on Ash Street, and they did catering from the house. They baked cookies and stuff, but they also prepared all the meals. And Nonnu and Nonna and Uncle Tony, and even Mom, when she was old enough, they catered weddings. They provided everything and served the food and everything.
Wow.
And so they were on Ash Street. So then Nonnu, who became like he was a patriarch. He was a boss, and everybody feared him.
Roughly what time period was that? What years?
That was in the early 30s that I remember him,
Yeah, because it was before I was
because
born.
he was still in the store when I was a little boy, and he would give me money, and he was a very generous man,
Yeah.
but tough. Everybody feared him.
Nonna, my mom would tell me stories about him. You don't get him angry. She said, I actually see his hair rising. Actually moving.
No,
Oh, wow.
yeah, really.
Wow.
You know what Nonna said one day to Mom. Mom was a young girl,
Yeah.
little girl. She says, I'm packing my bag, and we're going back to Italy. She said to Mom, because Nonnu, and he meant it. He said soon. I'm going to have to, I don't want to, but soon I'm going to have to kill you. because you're not living, he said in
That's the
Italian,
man.
he
Cuore
said,
guarda.
because you're not living up to my expectations. So Nonna said to Mom, she says, Scappa means we're gonna beat it. Pack the bag. She packed the bag, and because he was today they would say he was
Manic.
manic.
Yeah.
Exactly, that's the word.
What he was,
Manic.
yeah.
He's manic, But see, I'll tell you why I thought he was manic too. Because as a little boy, it was Easter, and he got me a live bunny.
Oh, don't tell it.
No, you want me?
Yeah.
I love
It's
bunnies.
okay.
You want me
I
to,
love
look, you want to hear?
Of course. Tell me the story. I don't mind. I'll do one of these.
Look, okay,
No, tell it.
you know that
No,
story.
I know the story.
But-
Oh man, it's sad.
It is sad.
It's like Angela with the chickens in her little walker. Where'd the chickens go, Dad? Where'd they go?
I can't stand it because the chickens stay alive for a while. They,
No, I don't even want We were a brutal family.
well, the rabbit.
Yeah.
It was nice, soft.
I don't remember that.
You know, no, I know.
I don't
You
remember.
you were tiny. The rabbit. He put the rabbit in my arms. It was nice and soft and cuddly. You know. I says, oh, thank you, nonno. You know, I had to tell him in Italian, grazie, nonno, and he went, oh yeah. And then all of a sudden he turned. Something, turned, and he grabbed the rabbit, and he went outside, and he hit it against the telephone pole and killed it.
That was a silly
And
one.
I'm watching this.
Silly dead rabbit.
I says, oh my God. And I thought I did something wrong, but it took a while to get over that.
Did he want it for the stew?
Huh?
That's a shock.
Did you eat it? Did you eat it?
Yeah, they ate it.
I can't remember. We ate everything. My grandmother would cook anything that was ever alive on the planet. Everything. Pigeons to everything.
What was your favorite dish?
My favorite?
Yeah.
I hate to say it.
No, don't say that then. What, is it gonna, you gonna say it?
Yes, let him say it.
Oh, pig's feet.
Not the Cooper. Oh,
Pig's feet.
pigs.
Yes.
Oh, I
No,
thought you were gonna say,
no. Don't even see how.
I'll say it in Italian. They
Yeah,
won't
say
know.
it in Italian.
In Italian, it's called cabocello.
Capuccia.
It's the anus of the.
No, the other end. The other
No,
end.
it's scary.
Oh, the lips.
It's scary. No, it's
The-
scary.
The eyeballs of the cow.
Huh? It's scary.
The head, yeah.
Oh.
On
And
your
you-
dish.
Yeah.
Dad.
Oh, he's
loved
gonna wait?
Dad loved, remember, Dad loved that.
Oh, Dad. Oh, kings would kill for this meal. You don't know what you're eating.
You know,
Yes, I do, Dad. I know.
eat.
Do we have to? Do we have any guests to come over from kids that we played with? No. They would throw us out in the street. That was a tough one. That was the strangest food I ever.
But anyway.
Although there were things that I ate that I didn't even know what it was. Honestly,
Yeah.
because my grandmother
No,
cooked
she
so
cooked
well.
everything,
that
yeah.
It was perfect.
It was a depression.
Oh, hey, anything. There was a guy down the street. I didn't see him for a couple of days. I got nervous.
You can't trip and fall.
You know, when she used to do the bones, the soup bones with the leg, I'd say, is this human? It's like a human.
But anyway, Nonno was
Bad.
feared. Nonno was feared.
Of course she was. They didn't want to. She'd eat them.
No, he was in charge of the bean pickers when they put all the Italians on the truck and took them to Portland.
Oh yeah.
And that's where Mom met Dad.
We have pictures of them resting on the side of the road in the Cortland area when they're bean picking.
Yep.
No, Mom was standing against the cars, and that.
Yeah.
I love those pictures.
Yeah.
There's some of
Those are great.
in the fields too.
Yeah, in the fields,
Yeah.
they have these guys with bags.
Right.
It's just a. I showed those pictures to some of the friends I have.
Yeah.
The breakfast people,
Yeah.
waitresses and stuff.
Yeah.
They think those pictures are phenomenal.
They
should be
are.
in museums.
Do you know they have a reunion every year in Cortland of the bean pickers?
Really?
And if you were a bean picker or a family member of a bean picker, you can go. And I toyed with the idea of going, but then I thought the reputation of your grandfather being the foreman, I thought I better not go because they
Well,
might not have liked him.
Well, one of the bean pickers was Mrs. Lobello, who was the midwife. She brought me into this world, Mrs. Lobello.
Well, she was the one that used to help to cure people.
Yeah, but she also
Like a sore throat?
Yeah,
She'd take your hair out of
yeah.
you,
Well, we'll come to that
Come to
one.
that.
Anyway, but anyway, she was picking beans with her daughters. She had a lot of daughters, and
Snakes around.
and she was picking beans, and she was pregnant. And she says she went and had a baby in the shack, and she went out and picked her quota of beans the same day. That's how tough she was, Mrs. Lobello.
Those were the days, huh?
They don't make
Maybe
women
more
like
that
that
now.
anymore.
No C-section, please, baby.
They don't make them like
Nah,
that
they
anymore.
don't make them like
No,
that.
no.
Darn it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Well, anyway, so we're up to 19. You're now a little
35,
boy.
I'm 35.
Well, you know,
so
you don't have to.
19.
Oh, Nonnu's funeral. They took me into the living room.
That had to be 37, right?
37, yeah.
Yeah.
So they took me into the living room. He was laid in a casket in the bedroom, where Nonna's bedroom was.
I have the plate from the cast
Yeah.
in
but-
my drawer.
But think about this. Here
Penizotto.
it's kind of dark and misty, and they take me in. They say, "We want you to say goodbye to your grandfather." So I walk into this
Oh my
room and it's
God.
dark, and here he is laying there in our bedroom. And I go there and I look at him. I go, "Oh my God!" I thought he was going to get up. I thought he was going to get up out of the thing.
Pretty tough.
They had the longest car procession in the history of the city for him. And all those people owed him money. Mom used to say he used to give money out to everybody, and they never paid him.
Never paid
So
him back.
they were all paid their respects.
Yeah, Mom had a list of people who owed her money.
I saw that list. I saw those cars. I said, as far as I could see on State Street,
Wow, that's
all cars for his
a very
funeral.
popular place. It was.
Yeah, and this woman, they had me stay with this woman while they took care of all the arrangements and everything. I don't know, I forget her name now, but she was only a couple blocks away.
Yeah.
But then that was the beginning.
That's the beginning. And
What
then-
was his full name? What was his full name?
Your
What?
grandfather's full
What was
name.
his full name?
Pietro. I don't
Penizotto.
think he had a middle name.
Penizotto?
Penizotto, but it was
yeah.
spelled like they pointed
Different,
out.
yeah.
Yeah, different. 2 N's, 2 Z's, 2 T's.
They changed it when he came to the country.
Yeah.
The spelling was all,
Shortened it a little.
Yeah.
and Uncle Tony was part of that. He was
Yeah.
involved with finding out what happened.
Yeah,
But he
no,
made it, Uncle Tony actually made the final decision on the name.
Really? Now, he was,
P-E-N-I-Z, you know.
he was the
yeah.
oldest, right?
What's that?
Was
He was
he
the
the
oldest,
oldest?
like.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the oldest.
Yeah.
And he actually, one thing about Nonnu that was very much better than Nonnu Gazzara is Nonnu Penizotto, Peter Penizotto. He insisted that all of his kids go to school and graduate.
Education was important.
Yeah. So Uncle Tony, being the oldest, he graduated high school.
Yeah.
Mom graduated grammar school and was pulled out of high school.
So proud of it. She was so proud
Yeah,
of it.
but she could write and read fast.
You know, yeah,
But and then Uncle John, when he came to this country, Nonnu said, "You got to go to school." He was 14, and he had to sit with these little kids. And he was
big,
He
yeah.
was big, and here he is. But he insisted that he go to school and learn to read and write, everything like that.
you know, while you're back up a little bit, Uncle John's stories in Italy, because that's back way
Wow.
back. He told stories of he was a kid covered by this consigliere guy that took care of him. He said the guy was a big, strong guy, and he saved him twice. Once an octopus grabbed him in the ocean because he was coming out of the water, and he grabbed the took care of it. And the other time was there was an earthquake.
That's the.
And I don't know what year that earthquake was.
That was
in history.
It was about 1908.
Yeah,
something like
in
that.
Italy there was this big earthquake, and he was staying in a Catholic. Everybody was in a religious setting, place, and the kids were told to get out of there because the earthquake was hitting. The gates that were on the road that allowed them to escape were jammed because the ground moved and it stuck.
Yeah.
So this guy that was taking care of my Uncle John went over and he pulled the gates apart and let the kids.
Yeah.
He said, Uncle John said he ran over walls of collapsed buildings, people screaming and crying under his feet. He just kept going toward the ocean.
There were tens of
I
thousands
think
that
there,
died.
at least 8,000 people died in that town.
Horrible story.
Died, but or more.
But that was one of the stories that Uncle
But it
John.
leveled the whole city
Yeah,
of Messina.
flat.
Yeah,
Flat.
down flat. Everything is new now after that.
In those days, everybody ran to the ocean because it was.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the place.
to go.
That's what place where Nonna met Nonnu. She actually walked 45 miles with her mother from a little tiny place in
Those stories,
southern-
I
in
remember
Calabria.
those, I remember those stories.
Yeah, and she was raised by these nuns, cloistered nuns.
Yeah.
That's why she could pray. You know.
Well, you know what, the fascination I have with Nana is brilliant woman. Hardly spoke, didn't speak any English, but she was brilliant. Every time I had a problem, it was solved, you know. One thing I remember her saying to me, because of her life in Italy, she was a nurse. She helped in hospitals. They did all the aid work. And she told me, she says, in Italian, that pomegranate was the best fruit you can have for your health. Back when I was a little boy. So I'm thinking, what does she know? Come on, pomegranates. Where does it say pomegranate? We didn't have Google at the time, so I had to believe her. So I found out in my own thinking, the way she came up with these gems was that she cared for families, different, and everybody knew every family in every little zone. They knew them, name, style of life, poor, not poor, you know, that's.
Yeah.
So I surmised that she gathered that information based on watching the families, who was healthy, who wasn't, who ate this, who ate that,
Oh yeah.
took it in.
Yeah.
Who ate pomegranates seemed to be pretty cool, probably.
Yeah.
That's
It's a
how
good
she
system.
came up with
Yeah.
that analysis, you
It's
know.
a scientific method.
Oh, she came up. In one of the stories she told me. I'm on it because he
Yeah.
mentioned that
Go
era.
ahead. Go ahead.
That the villages had little fires outside. You know, they'd all have a fire going.
Yeah.
You know, I guess electricity wasn't very dumb, didn't have it. So they had these fires going, and every once in a while the fire would get low, almost out. And Nana would go to the next location, next home,
Yeah.
the village, and get hot coals.
Yeah.
And they put ashes in her hand, burned, you know, coal, and they put the hot coals on the ashes, so she would be insulated. You wouldn't feel it. So she'd carry it all the way home,
Yeah.
and they'd start a fire with that.
My
Borrowed ashes,
Gee.
borrowed coal.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? Isn't that wonderful
Yeah.
stories
Yeah.
of care and giving and
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, what was amazing was she was the oldest of the three children, and she and her mother decided to walk that 45 miles from that little village. They lived in a one-room hut with an earth floor, and they walked 45 miles to Reggio, Calabria, and then they jumped on the ferry boat.
That would have been nice. You didn't go in that area?
Yeah, I did.
Did you see her path when she walked and stuff? Or,
Yeah.
I mean, not her path.
Well, I saw that area. Yes.
I didn't see that.
It's
I
still,
wish
it's
I
still
would've-
wild.
Yeah.
Still wild. It's like flat, nothing there. The town that she lived in, there wasn't really a town. The priest would come once a week and say a few words. And
she already knew anyway.
Oh, she-
Nana knew every story in the Bible.
Oh.
She knew every verse.
well, you know why? Because the nuns raised her.
Yeah.
And they were
knew.
cloistered. You know,
Yeah.
they were behind a screen.
She would correct Monsignor Walsh occasionally.
Oh, well, that's why that
In a
prayer.
discreet way.
Well, the prayer that you did for in brass for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that she says.
It came from, yeah.
She said to mom, look, she says, well, when I tell you, you have to read that prayer. And she was in bed, she was bedridden for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So finally she said, I want you to read that prayer tonight. She did, and that night she died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a sad.
You know, that's what they was for.
Yeah, that was, what, 19, she died 60 something.
Yeah. Was,
Because 61
early
maybe?
60s.
Because Peter was just a little boy, a little kid. Anne Marie and Peter were. And I remember going to the house, and Uncle John took it harder than they all took it hard.
Oh yeah.
Uncle John was really affected. You know, I never forget that time. you
Because
know.
he had less time with her, right?
Huh?
He had less time with her because he was over in Italy being raised.
No. This is when she died in the '60s. Uncle
Yeah.
John was already
Yeah, I
a
know,
gambler and all that.
Yeah, but yeah, true. But he had lost those 14 years too, right?
Well, as a youth,
Yeah, as
when
a
he was
youth.
very young,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But he came here at what, 15,
14.
14?
Yeah.
So he, you know, that's
He was a big kid.
20 years.
Yeah.
You know, he went across the United States though at 16
Yeah.
by just playing
Pool. He was a pool shark.
Pool shark.
Right.
He financed his
gambled
whole way
on his
across
way
to
to the West
California.
Coast. What a guy.
Yeah, as
He
a
was in a
teenager.
movie.
As a teenager.
What's the name of the movie?
No, I don't know. I mean, a Western.
What-
They know what they call them. The stuntmen and stand-ins
Oh,
and all that
stuntmen.
stuff. He rode horses. This guy from Italy didn't hardly speak English.
Well, he wanted his father to go to.
Come over.
Yeah.
There's a picture of him. I gotta find it somewhere.
Yeah.
He's
Hold the
in
tray.
California,
Yeah.
gorgeous, holding a tray,
Yeah.
serving tray. He was a waiter,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And he worked his way into the California style.
yeah.
And he would send notes to his parents. Get out here! This is
Yeah,
beautiful
that's-
out here. It's Italy.
Should have gone.
Boy, can you imagine?
Oh man, it would have been just perfect.
Yeah.
Syracuse,
I know.
10 feet average a year of snow. What are two people from Sicily doing in Syracuse, New York? You remember what would it be like the first year they got there? Okay, the
Yeah.
first year. It must
Yeah.
have been summertime,
Yeah.
Yeah,
probably.
yeah,
They go settle down, they get in the house, like no heat. Then Syracuse starts snowing probably September.
yeah,
And how did they live?
Yeah.
How did they survive the
Yeah.
snow?
yeah. Good question.
You can't walk.
Do you remember the place where they first settled?
They probably never saw a shovel.
Probably not.
Ever.
Not in Italy, no.
Do you remember where they
forgot.
settled?
Yeah.
Where all the sewage from the city goes through Mulberry
Oh, yeah.
Street, Mulberry Street, where the oil tanks were.
Yeah.
That a little place on top of a hill. That's where all the Italians lived when they first came
Sewerage.
to Syracuse, and they lived together with certain houses, and it was very, very primitive living, and nobody. That's a disgusting area.
Yeah,
That's
it
where they could afford that.
And the house, we get a bit to when we were young, growing into that house, the stories were like amazing.
Yeah.
I mean,
But we gotta tell them though about when we were small in the store, living in the store.
yeah,
We lived on the second floor.
yeah.
And
And
Dad would be on the phone. He'd pick up the phone and call us upstairs, but we could hear him through the floor.
We could hear him down the street,
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, there were some. Remember, tell them about the deaf and dumb family that
Yeah,
Frankie
that's what
Lynn?
he called them, deaf and dumb. I mean, the word
deaf and dumb. They were
It was acceptable in the 40s and
Right,
50s.
right.
Yeah, they were
But
deaf.
Frankie Lynn.
Frankie Lynn.
And he had a child
Yeah.
named Gary.
Yeah.
And he was younger than me. He was probably about, 5-6 years younger than me, something like that. And he was a tough little kid, handsome boy, and he'd always dress him perfectly. And they didn't even know he spoke. They were completely deaf, They saw a mouth and do things like that.
Yeah.
No sound. So anyway, we were supposed to take care of the kid. Every time we went to the movies, they wanted him to go. Vincent and I and my gang would take him to the movies. Oh, unbelievable. One day he goes to the movies with us. And the movie was intense. We loved the movie. It was a Western probably. And he's sitting there, edgy. He had to go to the bathroom. Nobody wanted to take him this time. So what's he do? Poops right in the aisle. It was still
In the turn hall.
It was steamy. And we looked at each other. We're kids. We don't know what's going on. You know what we did? We left.
Yeah.
We didn't do anything. We didn't clean. Some poor guy was like, God.
No, but when
Anyway.
Dad wanted to
So
talk,
anyway, Dad, my father had such a loud voice
Yeah.
he was
that I
very.
think Frankie Lynn heard him.
Yeah.
He was-
Throughout the years.
Oh yeah.
Do Dad going out on the sidewalk.
He would go outside in front, Dad, and he'd have his apron on, he'd take a smoke. And you'd see him with his apron up, taking a cigarette, and he'd see Frankie Lynn down the street.
Yeah.
It was, where the Gell's restaurant was?
Yeah.
It was, how many, about 100 yards?
Oh yeah.
120,
Least. About
something like that, yards away. So he'd see Frankie, and he'd say, "Hey, Shop Below!" Shop Below was a code for these guys.
A
that
code
drank
word.
together. It's a code word for drinkers.
He
Shop Below is
Yeah.
big stuff.
Yeah.
he figured that he could hear him.
Yeah.
He talked to the
Everybody's window closed on the plank wall because they knew
Yeah.
Dad was starting to talk. So, hey, what the hell are you doing, you silly bastard? Frankie would wave at him and smile.
And smile. He
Look at
couldn't
guy,
hear
big
that.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even when they were cooking in the back in the bakery,
Yeah.
I remember that we had a curtain on the screen
Oh,
door,
I remember that.
and he thought that was
All right.
Block.
soundproof.
Right.
What are these bastards doing in there? They're coming in here, and buying all the cookies now. We can't even.
What he hated most was, see, he was a specialist in making lemonade. He made the lemonade. He was good.
Yeah.
My father was on it.
Best.
So he'd whip it all up and it'd be all creamy and great. And he'd be pacing like nobody's coming. Nobody's coming. He'd open it, he'd stir it up, make it fluffed up again, close it.
Yeah.
What the hell's wrong with you? So we close at 9 at night. It was 4 in the morning to 9 at night. What hours? Anyway, where the hell are they? So now, 5 minutes to 9, some people come in for lemonade.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
You open the curtain, close the curtain. Jesus Christ! What the hell is wrong with these people? God damn, don't they know? You have to open this. Then I would, once in a while, my mother mostly would open the door and say, "Hi, can I help you?"
But you know, the curtain story is on the holiday, the place was jammed. They would always buy an Italian pastry, okay?
Yeah.
So one of the oldest boy from the Versillos on Ash Street, he was dark complected, nice man, and he married into society. He the oldest Versillo boy went from the poor to rich, at least in his living style.
Yeah.
And he married this very stylish woman, socialite, fur coat, really, and came in on a holiday to buy some cookies. So he came in with her. Here's this guy that was very dark, with a daughter who was actually she was trying out with the Metropolitan Opera. She was so good, and she was dressed to the hilt. And they came in, and Dad, who, like Pete says, the opaque,
discreet.
the soundproof screen. He looks and he sees this guy, and he opens the door. He says, "Pete, where the hell have you been?" And the wife, so help me, the wife and the daughter shrank.
Yeah, well, of course.
And they walked out. They
Yeah,
walked
well, I
out.
She was dressed all.
I would have too.
They were.
That wasn't good.
He stayed.
Yeah, but in those days.
In those days, I know.
He stayed.
Gosh.
So
Yeah, this wife, can you imagine what she thought?
I don't know.
Holy
my God.
jeez.
God.
Horrible time.
Yeah, no.
I mean, he was just bad when it came to.
Yeah, he had no social graces.
Yeah, he should have stayed
when I was
upstairs.
born anyway.
Upstairs.
Yeah.
He should have stayed up there.
But then he was out looking out the window. Yeah,
He
when
had
was
that
out the
screen.
window.
We had hinges on the top of our screens
Right.
and a little clip
Yes.
that would hold it closed.
Right.
He'd lift the thing, push it out,
Yeah.
and he'd have Tuffy, the
Tuffy,
dog,
yeah.
sitting
Yeah.
there, and he'd survey the street.
Uh-huh.
He
I
was the
remember it,
boss.
yeah.
of
He
State
was the boss.
Street.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, there were some nights that were, he got in a little trouble because one night some guy came by that was drunk and going back to Gell's, and I heard some words, and I go, oh, jeez, the guy doesn't know what the hell he's getting into. If he starts to deal with my father, whoever it is, even Joe Louis would have a problem with it. So sure enough, he went out and he knocked this guy out. He hit him.
Wow.
My father came home with his thumb cut open with one punch. The guy was still laying down on the sidewalk.
Wow.
I looked out the window.
Oh my
We were
God.
scared to death.
Jeez.
And blood squirting. My mother grabbed him and dressed it and did all that stuff. God, Jesus.
What about the guy on the street?
Well, yeah, but there was a bunch of people
Oh,
that
there
helped
wasn't.
him.
Oh,
There was
oh.
no
There was no-
ambulance, but they took care of him.
You didn't want to get him mad.
But my father said that he said something that was not
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, yeah.
He said something,
Yeah.
a wise guy.
took care of that.
But Dad, you have to
But I
kill the
never
guy.
saw people work 3 solid days like they did before all the holidays.
Oh, God.
No sleep, no
Torture.
sleep. 24 hours a day for 3 solid days. I don't
We
know
would
how
make
they
boxes all night,
Yeah.
setting up for cookies.
Yeah.
did cookies. But
Then
they-
when we got old enough, we would deliver to them too. At 16, I
Well-
couldn't wait to drive.
Yeah.
Well,
I found out
that's how we got in trouble with. Remember with Vincent? He was a pain in the ass, and remember when we were upstairs and they were working on the holiday, And remember, he said, we didn't know. We said,
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't know. Well, Vincent was, I hate to say it, I love my brother.
Yeah.
He was the biggest heart. He would do things for everybody, anyone. But he was a pain in the neck, he really was.
No, he was.
So Chuck and I we'd take the heat a lot.
Yeah.
Because my father would just be passive about it. Hey, just give him what he wants, basically.
Yeah, he's
So,
spoiled.
Well,
Well, he was sickly.
yeah,
When he was a baby, when he was small, he was sickly. So
Yeah.
they pampered him.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
So he said, so we came up with this idea to get him off our backs. He was a pain in the neck. So Chuck and I said, there's a gun. They got a gun for you upstairs in the closet, in Mom's room. There's a little
Nice white with a nice, or a
Yeah,
nice
they got a
cowboy
great cowboy
thing,
gun.
yeah.
So his eyes sparkled, and he was gone. We were happy.
Yeah, we got rid of him.
Yeah, what could go wrong?
What a pain he was.
Yeah.
So he comes, boom, 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 down the stairs fast, and Chuck and I are looking at each other. He comes in carrying a gun, waving it around like this.
A loaded pistol.
Pistol.
It was in the closet.
It was in the closet. We didn't know. I didn't have no idea. I just made it up.
my
Chuck
God.
went along with it.
Now, try to get that gun away from him.
Oh,
Who did it? Who got it away from him?
well, my father.
Oh, he went back and forth. Dad took it away from him finally before somebody got killed, and Dad went down cellar. We followed him, and he took the bullets out of it, and he smashed it
With a hammer.
with a hammer and smashed it and bent the barrel.
Couldn't be used.
And then I was about 12 or 13, I don't know. And he says, so Dad says to me, at the oldest boy, he hands me this gun. He goes, and somebody had been killed. Murder was committed right in front of the store by somebody in the town. This unsolved murder, and the guy ran in the back and hid the gun where they made the gelato and the spumoni.
The back. It's a garage there.
Yeah.
It's a garage back
And Mom and Dad hid the gun in the closet. We didn't know that. And so when we told Vincent there was a gun there, that's the gun that he found, and it was loaded,
It was a murder weapon.
a murder weapon. So after Dad disfigures it,
Yeah.
he hands it to me and he says, "Get rid of it.
Get rid of it. No.
Get rid of it."
Yeah.
I'm a kid. I'm not even a teenager.
And you hadn't seen The Godfather yet, where he put
No, I know, but he showed it at the chimneys, yeah.
He said, "Get rid of it. How am I going to get rid of a hot gun?
Yeah.
How?"
Yeah.
It's pretty clever, though.
So yeah, but it was clever because I thought about it all night. I said, "Geez, what am I going to do with this thing? What am I
This
going
is
to
how the scientist was born.
do?" Yeah,
that stimulated him to think that I could be a scientist.
yeah. So they were on the corner of Ash and State.
Yeah.
They built a warehouse,
Right.
and they were going to pour the foundation.
Yeah.
So at night, I went over there and threw it down in between where the
Two,
forms
yeah.
were,
Oh.
and they put concrete on top of it.
So it was all sealed.
Still there.
Well,
I think
Oh,
it's
that's
probably
the
still
town,
there.
so-
Oh, yeah, they wouldn't go that far down.
The building is gone,
Yeah.
but I think it's still there.
At least,
as
we
far
know.
as you know.
Yeah.
So can you
So-
tell me, what was the story you were telling about how somebody else was also kind of inventive and they figured out a way to get rid of trash when there was
Uncle
no...
Tony.
Oh, Uncle Tony.
Uncle Tony was a classic.
Uncle Tony had a van.
He was a truck man.
Had a 1937 Chevy van, and he never turned the key off.
You pull up somewhere.
He always never. And so, Skippy had a story about him. He always left it running, no matter where he went. And so one night he was taking the family home, and he ran out of gas. And Aunt Tina didn't speak to him for a week. And the kids, they walked about a mile to get to home. And because they left the truck there, because he left it running all the time. He'd go in the saloons. He'd come out an hour later.
Why?
Empty.
It
He's
was
just the way he was.
It was just his way. But anyway, it was during the summer. It was hot summer, and they had a strike or something. They weren't picking up the garbage, so the garbage was building up
especially
and
us.
building up and building up.
Bakery, yeah.
Yeah.
And so Nonna and Mom and Dad and all of them saying, "What are we going to do with this? What are we going to do?" And so finally, Uncle Tony comes in and his way, he goes,
Solution.
"Forget it, I'll take care of it." And they go, oh, great.
Don't
Ah.
Don't worry about
So,
it. Yeah.
so he puts this garbage in the back of that pickup truck that he had, that little van,
Yeah.
Chevy van. And he says,
Go for a
okay,
ride.
kids, you want to ride?
Go for a ride.
Oh, we all jumped in the back of this,
Excited, yeah.
panel truck. And naturally, and the back was open. See, so the air was coming through. So he's driving up towards an idle lake in this highway, and we're all in the back looking out the back window, back door, and he finally says, okay, kids, let her go. Let her go.
Push it.
Push with your feet. And all this garbage hits the road. Ba-da-boom!
It was
And
exciting.
we were hysterical.
It was
There's no
exciting.
car-
We
no
loved
cars
it.
behind you.
Fireworks. Of course not.
Yeah, it was
all-
better than fireworks.
There wasn't much traffic.
Yeah,
Usually, you know.
yeah. Boom! All over this.
Exploded.
Oh my God.
Cookies everywhere.
He
Well, you
goes.
had to do what you had to do, you know?
He turned around and
Hey.
drove back.
Yeah, all the boxes.
Somebody
all
had to do it.
Penizotto.
All taken care of.
No problem.
No more smelly garbage.
You know, that's that can-do attitude, you
God.
know?
Down deep, you kind of knew it wasn't right, but
Yeah, yes,
Hey, what the
something
heck?
very unusual is
a lot of
happening.
fun.
Well, they used to always do.
Extreme
Remember
times.
Mike the barber next door?
Oh, the
Mike
atomic
the
barber
barber had a little
Atomic
dog.
That's what it was. The atomic
No,
barber
I
shop.
What
see
was
those
the dog?
pictures.
Dog
Wow.
Vicky, I think it was named.
Yeah, Vic.
Vicky, and it was a nice little terrier, and the guys, when they were drinking beer, they always did something goofy, you know, and so they decided to take all this garbage again, a garbage story, and they piled it against his door at the barber shop, and and then they started hollering, and he came out, and he was so mad,
Yeah.
he came out, and his underwear and his back flapper was flat, and the dog is biting his underwear, and he's pulling this garbage away. Everybody's there laughing. Hey!
You know what? There was a barber, Mike the barber.
Mike the barber.
He was virtually blind,
Yeah.
and he was a barber.
He was a
He could
barber.
hardly see. His glasses.
That makes sense, yeah.
And my mother wanted us to go there for the hair.
Yeah. You get a free haircut.
Kidding?
Yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
You feel. Let's see, it's a boy.
The other story is the one on Miss Antonio, driving into the store or something? Is that the
Well,
one?
he wanted to be.
Oh.
Master
he
Antonio
wanted
wanted to be
to
in
be
the-
famous.
well, the
right?
He wanted to be
Oh,
famous.
Master Anton. He insisted on
Crazy
me
man.
calling Master Tony. In Italian, it's Master Antonio.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And he insisted on that. And
Explain
if you didn't,
Why?
who he
Why?
was.
everybody feared him.
Yeah, who was he?
He was, what was the grocery store on the next block?
Oh, I know. Mike,
Amato's.
no, Amato, next to Amato.
No, no.
Mike.
No, that was Amato.
No,
But,
Amato was.
but Master Anton, that was
What's
his
his name?
sister. She married Amato.
I can't remember the restaurant, the meat market next to
Yeah,
Amato.
that was
That was Mike.
Mike.
He was a character.
yeah, Mike.
I don't remember his last
But
name.
no, but the Amato's was the grocery store
Yeah.
next door.
Right.
And the woman in that store, her brother was Master Anton.
Master Anton.
And he was a master bricklayer. And at that time, he was getting $50 a
Tough
day
guy. Tough.
laying bricks. But he liked to fish. But
His hands were like
he would
stone.
he'd rent a boat, and he'd come to knocking on the door at 5 o'clock in the morning, get me out of bed. You got to go fishing. Oh, and he wanted me to row the boat. See, that's what he wanted. So nobody said no to him, and even Dad said it. He said everybody feared him. He was fearful.
He had a look in his eye.
Oh, he turned red, and
His eyes would be red.
oh, his eyes would be big, and he would.
Big man.
I said, Master Antonio, why did you leave Italy? You like it so much? Because you'd go back once in a while. He said, well, I killed a guy. He said, well, yeah, geez, but that's why you left? He said, no. He said, I didn't know he was an important guy. But when I killed him, then they were after me, and I had to leave. But they feared him so much that because he would do anything.
Crazy.
And even when they were hunting, he didn't know how to shoot. He'd shoot at it. But there was a guy there with a nice bird dog, and like that. with a pheasant, shoots the pheasant. Musher Antoine goes, and Dad was telling me this story. He says he goes up to the guy and he says, "That's my pheasant." The guy said, "No, I got it. The dog got it." Never this. Give me that. And everybody's paralyzed. The guy gave him a
Oh, yeah.
pheasant.
You know.
He would not.
No, he would light
He has
up.
a look that you just
you
don't.
just know. You're not gonna
Yeah.
mess with it.
Ooh, jeez.
Was he the one in the fishing story?
Yes,
where he
yeah,
lost
well,
his
this is
pole?
what, let me tell you this story. This is what he did. It's a true story. We went to Burton. There was
Best
a,
place to fish.
that's the inlet to Oneida Lake. And there was a tugboat, a state tugboat there. And it was a hot, hot day. And so Musher Antoine says, and that was during World War II, you could not buy fishing tackle. Reels and rods were precious. Like, people would kill for those. And anyway, we had our rod and a reel was there, our precious rods and reels. And the state boat was hot. So Musher Antoine says, you thirsty? Yeah. He said, "Come with me." So he jumps on the boat and had a big rope like that tied up. And he goes and he gets this dipper. Way down, there was a stainless steel thing with nice water in it, and you get a nice drink of water. It was delicious. It was beautiful. So I took a drink and I jumped back on the land, and he was on the boat, and some kids were releasing the ropes, and there was one rope left, and I ran, I grabbed it, and he saw that. He says, "Oh," he was exploded. So he was angry. All right, that's not bad enough, but now there's a car, an old car, got like a 1925 Ford or something, and even the engine, there was a little 4-cylinder engine going pop, 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 like that. He was going maybe 4 or 5 miles an hour. An old guy like that. He was driving, and down this dirt road, which was right behind us, and he was going toward the main road. And at that time, all of a sudden, his rod and reel were gone. I said, "Musher Antoine, your rod and reel, they're gone." And he goes, he looks, and he turned beet red. And he jumped off the boat, and he runs over there, and he says, because he couldn't replace it. How are you going to, during World War II. And then he looks and he sees this car with this guy going down the dirt road toward us, toward the highway. And he put, 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 put like that. So his eyes opened up and he turned red. Holy jeez, I said, no, I didn't want to get in his way. And he ran toward the car and jumped on the running board and started choking this guy. He was choking this guy. And the guy's driving. He didn't take his foot off the gas. He's going, but.
Was he trying to get his fishing pole?
And then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
I see his fishing pole going like that.
Oh.
There was a fish on it. I said,
In the
"Musher
water.
Antoine, your
In
pole,
the water,
your
right?
rod, your reel, they're out there. There's a fish on it." And he turns and he sees that, and all of a sudden he changes completely.
Too excited.
Yeah, he was excited all of a sudden and happy. "Ah, fish, my rod, my reel," He lets go of this guy's throat, and the guy just. It could have been like in the movies.
Yeah.
And he sees it. So I crossed his line with my line, pulled it in, and pulled his line. Then he pulled his pole in, and he's pulling like this, and he's happy now.
Yeah.
He went from complete killing madness to this happy.
That's scary.
He's a very,
He's
very
thrilled.
strange guy.
Here's his pole like this. He pulls it up, and guess what? It was a carp, which he hated. All of a sudden, another mood change.
Talk about manic.
Yeah.
Another mood change. Here he goes. And he's swearing in Italian. And he grabs his knife and he stabs this fish.
We were hanging around with him.
I wish I had a camera. So Mom kept asking me, she says, you're going to be 14 years old on June 12th, okay? And I said, yes. She says, okay, June 12th came.
That's wonderful.
She says, go right to the courthouse and get your learner's permit, or wherever they issued it. I said, why? She said, just do it. So I went down, got the learner's permit. You could drive in the daytime. I learned to drive in the daytime, but you couldn't drive at night. That day, she had me delivering cakes. And I asked her, I said, you know, Dad's got a chauffeur's license. He was so proud.
Of it.
Oh, I got a chauffeur's license.
I have it at home.
Yeah, I got it. And I could drive trucks or anything. I said, but why doesn't Dad deliver cakes? Why doesn't Dad deliver cakes? She says, because we were making, he says, you want me to deliver a wedding cake? Yeah. He says, all right. So they made a wedding cake for an order,
Just a little while.
big wedding cake, tray of cookies and all that. And he put them in they had a 36 Ford station wagon.
I remember.
Old,
It had the teardrop headlight.
Yeah, and
I think you should go.
this bum, traveling bum during the Depression, did an engine job with his tools he was carrying. He walked around homeless with auto repair tools and overhauled an engine for them on that car. Anyway, he took the station wagon with the wedding cake and the tray cookies, and he delivered them to this party. And the bride and the groom were there with all of the people in the party, and they were about to have their celebration. And Dad was carrying the cake across this the floor of this where they were having the celebration. And either the groom or the bride said something to him that he didn't like. He took the cake and he threw it at both of them. This is a 5-layer cake with all the icing on both the groom and the bride, and he walks out and he took the form.
We used to
Because he used to have to make them. He used to make them.
They were a pain in the neck.
And so he says, now, you want me to deliver cakes? My mother said, no, I don't want you ever to touch another cake or tray. That's why she wanted me on my 14th birthday with a learner's permit. And Dad says, I taught my son how to drive. And it wasn't him. You know who's taught me?
Uncle John.
Uncle John taught me how to drive secretly.
Secret, yeah.
But so that day on my 14th birthday, I knew how to drive, and I took the wedding cakes and everything that she had. Not much that day, but they had to be delivered. And I bought that day on my 14th birthday. I bought a little address book for all of the streets in Syracuse. And Mom says, "Good. Now you're going to deliver."
Yeah, Dad.
Until you were old enough
yeah.
take over.
Yeah, I was.
But that's my final story.
Yeah, it's a good story.
It's a
That's a
good
good
story about Dad's temper.
Well, Dad's temper, yeah. He had two favorite things: forms and lambs for Easter.
Yeah.
That was his favorite.
Yeah.